So my students, I mean, honestly, I fell in love with all of them. They're like my adopted kids. So I just want to show you what they went from and what they became. So this is my most recent class.
I don't know how to put this, but I'm kind of a big deal.
I'll skip it a little faster, sorry. So I made this little video for them when they graduated. They were my first class, so I was super excited. My most recent class, I should say. And we made all these really great designs, and all of these designs were made in Figma. So they learned a lot about mobile development. I'm sorry, mobile design, web design, and even a little bit of development actually. So these are some of the portfolios they were working on when they finished. And like I mentioned, they're already starting to get job offers. So I'm really excited for them. During our cohort, we did a few extra labs and worked on things that are coming in the near future, such as Web 3.0 and the metaverse. And we just had a really good time together. So whether or not you end up as students of mine or one of the other instructors, or even learn on your own, just want to start pointing you in the right direction for a few things. So like I said, those are my kids, at least by adoption. And now let me show you the presentation for tonight. So I didn't make a really long presentation because I want to show you some things. So I mainly just focused on, telling you what I'm going to show you, and then I'm going to show you what I'm going to show you. Okay, so this presentation is really about taking your static designs and bringing them to life. But it sounds like some of you are new to Figma also, so I'm going to spend a little time in Figma as well and point you in the direction of a few great tools you can use to keep learning while you're preparing for what you're going to do next. So we're going to talk a little bit about ideation, discovery. We're going to talk about tech decisions that you're going to have to make or be part of, what you're going to decide before you start converting your design. Actually, even probably before you start putting pixels on the page, there's some decisions that should probably be made if you're part of that process. How it all fits together, Figma design, Webflow, and then a little bit about micro interactions, just because they're really fun. I wanted to show you guys that. So you may already be familiar with this, but in product design, in design itself, there are a few methodologies that are followed, and you probably have heard the term design thinking. You may have heard sprints. And what it really all boils down to is, let's make sure we know who we're creating for, why we're doing this, what we want to help them accomplish, how we're going to help them accomplish that, and how we're going to measure results. And to make sure that we do this in a structured, logical, and hopefully fast and repeatable way, we usually lay out some sort of process such as this. This is a design sprint. I'm going to show you, this comes from Design Sprint Kit, which was originated by Google. So it's really about understanding who it's for, starting to define some things out, then sketching out some ideas, making some decisions on those sketches, prototyping, validating, and then starting to actually bring some things to life. So regardless of which process you use or which methodology you use, companies and organizations and designers that want to make sure they get it right start by understanding who they're creating for. So there's some sort of discovery process. And this discovery process usually incorporates some sort of ideation, such as brainstorming, sketching, all different types that are pretty fun and interesting. And you can learn a lot about the team that you're working with, the client that you're working with, even yourself. So if we went and started thinking about what it takes to bring a design to life, as I mentioned before, we want to understand who it's for. And generally in the design world and the marketing world, we call the person that we're creating for the persona. So we want to understand who they are, what are their pain points? What are we trying to help them solve? In the past, even when I started in technology, remember I said I was really young, back then, everything was really decided by either the idea originator, the business, or the developer themselves. A lot of decisions were left to the developer. And sometimes that would mean that design wasn't really user-friendly. Things would be sometimes complicated because maybe their skill set was really more in, creating algorithms or logical components, but maybe not necessarily thinking through how to simplify flows. And so that's really where our world, our responsibilities come into play. We think about who it's for and how do we make this easy for them to use, and how do we make sure that when this does reach the market, that it's something that's adopted and it's engaging and people keep coming back. So once we understand who our persona or avatar is, and we've done some discovery, potentially some competitive research, we start to define out a bit more about what we're wanting to understand. What does it look like for this persona? How are they going to use this? Sketch out some ideas. This part's really fun, especially in our classes, because believe it or not, creating some of these little sketches on paper, it really does start to bring it to life. And the good thing about sketching it out before you put it into a program like Figma or InDesign, or I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say InDesign, I meant to say XD or whatever tool you use. If you've already sketched it out, chances are you've probably thought through what should be on the page, what maybe shouldn't be on the page, and how you might want to make sure you connect things together. So it really does help you to become diligent. I don't know if you've ever, written a long story or started a book, but it really helps if you have an outline, or if you start thinking through the pieces before you just start typing on a screen, because what can happen is you kind of freeze up, like, oh, what am I going to do? So sketching can really help you, get into the flow and build and bring something to life in a meaningful way. And there's a lot of decisions that have to be made along the way. And some of those decisions will be informed by things that you discover during the prior phases, such as understand, sketch. There's things that you're going to figure out and understand. When you prototype it, you're going to learn even more, because you're going to understand, by prototype, we mean, creating either through your sketch, through a Figma design, low fidelity, meaning it's just black and white, like a wireframe, just sketch design, well, stick design, I guess you could say, or high fidelity, visual, full color design. Whatever design type it is, prototypes allow us to connect pages together or screens, UIs together, and feel like we're actually experiencing how it will work in the real world, so that we can make decisions early before we've already coded them, and then have a lot of rework, because it's a lot less expensive to fix things early in the process versus after they're already coded, which I'm sure is obvious to you of why. And it's a lot less frustrating too. So then there's a validation. This incorporates testing. It can be as simple as getting people to interact with your design and seeing if even on paper they understand what you're asking them to do. It could be a desirability test, comparing a couple of designs and getting their feedback. Do they understand what it's for? It's a lot of psychology and research and understanding to be a good designer. Empathy is probably the most important skill that you can develop as a designer, which you may already know, but if you don't, look into it. So ideation, the heart of design thinking, really is about helping align a team or a person and a client on the right problem to solve and provide actionable solutions. hopefully tightly scoped so that you don't take a really long time or have to do a lot of rework. You want to figure out what you're building first or designing first to challenge that and be tested with users at a later date. So I mentioned that one of the things that you're going to have to do is make some tech decisions. Now, if you're going and working at a company, chances are that this is going to be part of a larger group decision, or it may even come from the development team. They may already have technology chosen. But if you are creating your own thing or working for a client, sometimes you have to help make these decisions. And this is where you decide, what technology does this idea need to be delivered in? Am I going to create a mobile design? Am I going to create, or I should say, a mobile app, a web app? Am I going to create something that is both web and mobile? So in other words, it's just maybe a web design that's responsive and friendly to mobile, mobile devices. Anyway, those types of decisions early in the process save you a lot of time later. And if you think through what you want your various designs in terms of form factor or viewport. So if you're going to be primarily working with people that are using a mobile device, you want to make sure that the design you've spent a lot of your time considering is for the right form factor or viewport. Now, if you're going to be using mobile and desktop, you want to make sure that you've made lots of considerations and decisions for both types of design. And the nice thing about Figma is there's a lot of support for that, and same with Webflow. So you might be asking, well, what's the difference between a web app and a website? And a lot of new designers, new developers want to understand the difference. And it really boils down to whether or not you're incorporating data and logic. So if you are primarily focusing on visuals and your site is really to promote or share that you have, let's say, a car, a mobile cleaning service, you may not need a web app, because you may have some simple forms, maybe some information about your offer. But if your same mobile cleaning service allows online bookings, you might start to get into the web app logic. And in that case, there may be another decision for you to make it easier for you to support and build this. So if you're going the website route, most likely it's something that's, promoting a product or service, a brand. And in that case, you would probably use something like Webflow, for these, I would say, blogs, e-commerce, even potentially. Same, in addition to Webflow, you could use Shopify. It's a very popular one as well for e-commerce. If you're going to be creating primarily for a mobile app, then you would want to start considering technologies like Flutter, which allow you to create a design and deploy to both Android and iOS. So you would want to prepare to create your design and move through that pipeline rather than Webflow pipeline. And just to show support for this thing called Flutter, and you may be saying, what is that? It's a technology built on Dart that was created by Google. And it is the technology behind all of these popular brands. And it's one of the easiest languages or tools to create in for mobile apps. So I figured it was worth mentioning to you because mobile is such a huge part of our life now. And I had one more thing here, but I must have accidentally deleted it. So I'm just going to head over to that page and show you. It is right here. So is it there actually? I have a few things to show you soon, but let me see if it's this one. No. It's Flutter Flow is what I'm trying to show you. So I'll just open it this way. But what I wanted to show you is just like Webflow. Notice the little connection there, Flutter Flow, Webflow. Anyway, It is a builder for mobile applications that run natively. So that means that it's not a website that is responsive and is friendly to a mobile device. It's actually deployed through the through the Apple Store, through the Android or Google Play Store. That's a native app. A HTML5 or responsive site that's mobile friendly, that can be built in a tool such as Webflow. So there was one other thing I was going to mention to you, and I may have moved a couple of things around, or maybe I deleted something. Anything's possible. But what I wanted to tell you about are two other tools besides Webflow, just to give you a little background. One of them is called Bubble, and the other that we're going to be working with soon. I might have said two tools beside Webflow, but I meant to say two other tools, Bubble and Webflow. Bubble is a tool very similar to Webflow in that you can drag and drop. It's a no-code platform, but these are for SaaS applications. So these are for web apps. And when you say SaaS, that stands for, you may know this already, software as a service. So that means that either you are creating a site or a design for a product like some sort of subscription service. Like, let's look at one of these rather than me searching my brain for examples. Let's take a look at this one. So here it's, it said it was called Hacker. Come on, load up. Close this. Oh, well, it's in French, but it looks like they do some sort of Airbnb type housing for tech people. Anyway, if you were doing bookings and things like that, it would make sense to use a tool like Bubble because a back end is already part of the tool itself. So when you're working with Webflow and when you're working in Figma, you are creating the front end. You're creating the way it looks, and you're creating a more static experience. When you need to connect a site or a design to data or logic, that's when it becomes a web app. And that's when you need more. So website, Webflow, Bubble or similar for a web app, Flutter or similar for a native mobile app. And obviously there are many other technologies. I'm just giving you some of the most popular, friendliest, easiest to use current state. You know, of course, there's new things all the time. Okay, so regardless of which tool you use, the foundation underneath in almost all circumstances is leveraging some sort of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So I'm not sure how familiar you are, but I'm just going to give you a really quick synopsis of how this came about. So in the early days, the web was black and white. It was what they called shell commands, and I actually used it all the way back then. The web became more useful when it became graphical. And when it became graphical, the way that they made that possible was by using a language called HTML. And what that does is it's something that can be used by a browser. So if we go to a browser such as Chrome, where we just were a moment ago, where I am right now, actually, let me go over here. The first thing that I type is HTTP, right? Well, that stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. This communicates with HTML. It can render HTML and display it appropriately. So all browsers can understand the structure of what HTML is telling it to do, and will then be able to, you know, display appropriately your design. And to make it even better, when we started out in the early days, all we had was HTML, but now we also have CSS. So HTML could really be considered the bones. It's the structure of your site. And CSS it's really more like the clothing and the look and feel. And then the third thing that goes with that is JavaScript. And that's where any interactivity and motion and things like that, generally motion, that's where it generally comes into play. So all that being said, we're going to head over to Figma, and you may or may not have used Figma before. It is currently the most popular tool for design. You know, over time, there have been many different flavors. We went from early days, things like Dreamweaver and tools like that. Photoshop was generally the design tool back then, or Illustrator or Fireworks. Still can be in some cases, but not quite as common. Next came a tool that you may be familiar with called Sketch, which is still popular, but Figma has definitely, you know, become more popular and really widely adopted because of the collaboration aspect. There are many, many others besides Figma, but it's a great one because you can work together collaboratively. It's free, you know, at least initially, and they have a huge community that contributes and creates templates and things like that. And there's lots and lots of training materials. So that creates more and more adoption, which creates, you know, features and, you know, continues to generally make the tool thrive. There's also Adobe XD, and sometimes when you work in a corporate environment, they'll use Adobe products. Some corporations will not let you use web tools because of security. So in those cases, you'll generally work with a tool like Adobe XD, which is very similar to Figma, and even in some cases Sketch, but not as commonly anymore. So Figma is great because I'm going to log out, and well, I'm a little worried to log out. Let me go over to a different browser. I'm just going to go back to the beginning. So when you first land on Figma, if you're logged out, you'll see a screen like this. And they're just showing you how easy it is to work together. It's pretty neat. You know, for example, when I'm working with my class, we can all see each other moving around. If you've ever used Miro or Mosaic Mural or one of those tools, it feels like that, where you can see people moving around and see what they're doing. And FigJam is very much like Mural and Miro, where you can actually collaborate and work together and brainstorm like on your own whiteboard, but it's a fancy whiteboard. So this is what the screen looks like to get set up. If you look over here in the upper right-hand corner, if you don't already have an account, you can sign up. If you have a Google account, it makes it even easier because you can just do the pretty much one-click install, and then choose your account. And then, you know, pretty much you're just about ready to go right out of the gate. So now I'm going to head back over to my account that I use for the school. And I want to show you a couple other things before we dive in. So there is also a desktop version of Figma, which you may or may not know. I like it a lot because there's some additional features. And if for some reason you become disconnected, you know, your file's still available for you to work on locally. And, you know, no one wants to be interrupted from finishing their work because of, you know, an internet connectivity issue. So I always find that pretty handy. So one of the cool things about Figma is that there's a community. So if you've ever worked with WordPress, which is somewhat like Webflow, but more about blogging and more about a community that creates plugins and extensions for that type of tool, a blog. But anyway, WordPress also has a pretty extensive community. Webflow does as well. But nice thing is we can go in here and there's a lot of free resources. So if I head over here, for example, to mobile design, and I need some inspiration, or I just want to get started and, you know, work from something that already exists, there's no harm in that whatsoever. The only time that you have to be careful about using templates is if you're going to sell your product as a template. So if you're creating a product to sell as a template on Creative Market or Etsy or Graphic River or Theme Forest, you have to have your own original creation. But if you're creating a site and you want to start from something and make it better and better and customize it to your own, you know, liking or to the client's liking, there's nothing wrong with starting from something, you know, to get you going. So I just clicked on any random design. I'm going to go back and find something that maybe resonates a little more. This looks kind of interesting. So I'm just going to choose any random design just to show you that when you go to the community and you find something and you click on it, first they tell you a little bit about it. And you can also identify pretty quickly whether it's free or not. And this one is free. So if I wanted to have this design to work with, all I have to do is click duplicate. And now it's going to bring that over into my workspace. And I can see that it's right now, it's still in my drafts. I haven't actually moved it to my main project area yet, but it is local for me. And I could go in and take a look at this design and interact with it and, actually make changes. So, that's a pretty great benefit of this community, because there's so many resources out there for you. Everything from plugins that give you additional functionality to design, like we're looking at now, to UI kits that you can use to build designs. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to say file, and I'm just going to do a new design file. So I'm clicking on the main Figma logo over there. I'm doing file, new design. And when I do that, it's going to load up basically in a scenario where I have nothing going on at all right now. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add a frame, and our frames represent our viewports. So our viewport might be a tablet, it might be a desktop, might be a mobile device. In this case, I'm going to start with a desktop. So once I click on frame, so I clicked on this kind of square hashtag-ish grid square object, and I chose frame, and that loads this toolbar here, which displays different frame sizes that are already pre-made for you. Of course, you can choose your own size, but I'm going to go ahead and choose desktop MacBook Pro. Actually, I'm going to choose desktop 1440 by 1020. So now at least I have a work area. I have a canvas that I can work on, and I guess actually this whole area is really my canvas. I have a frame that I can work within so that I can start to bring my design to life. And you can see that frames have names, and those are represented over here in your left toolbar. And you can very easily change the frame name. So I'm going to just call this for now. I'm just going to call it home, just so I give it a name. And I can see that I have layers, I have assets, and here I have pages. So you can have many pages in your document as well. I'm going to head back over to layers, and I don't have anything interesting on my page yet, but I wanted to show you that you do have, if you're so inclined and want to start completely from scratch, you can, go in and start to draw things like a rectangle to represent maybe a menu area. So in this case, I'm just going to kind of do a quick little wireframe example. So I've created an area to represent my navigation. Obviously, I'd want to sketch this out on paper first. I wouldn't just dive in and draw and create without giving it a little planning or thought. But here's how I could, in theory, go about creating a basic landing page wireframe. So I'm thinking, okay, at the top, I have my navigation, and then I'm going to create something that uses quite a bit of space and catches the visitor's attention. And they generally call this area the hero area, meaning, it's the star. They want it to get all the attention and potentially, hopefully, convert to a sale if that's what they're trying to do. So, once we've decided, okay, we have some area for navigation, we have some area for a hero or call to action, then we can start to think through, the next parts of our design. But I'm going to head over to a design that I had already started working with. I have a couple of them here, and I'm going to show you exactly how to do these. But if I have that one and this one, which I already have in Webflow, the students and I worked on this one, a bit of this one. But let me show you a little bit about how this page is put together. So in the top here, we have our navigation, just like you saw a moment ago on the kind of representing it from the wireframe perspective. And you can see that this whole thing is connected together. Well, you've probably used other design tools or other tools. It's connected together by grouping. So if I right click on it, I can ungroup it. And now, all of the pieces are editable and can be moved around individually. And just to show you a bit about working with Figma, you can interact with any items on the page. And over on the right-hand side, this is really where all the design properties live. And over here on the left, this is really where all the navigation through your document or through your layers, this is where all of that lives. So if, for example, we decided that we didn't want this button to be orange anymore, you can see that orange is very obvious right here in this area. It's our selection color. And you may or may not know, but there's a number next to that color. And this numeric value here represents a hexadecimal color value, which is universal, so that every time you reference this value, it will always be this color. And you can use this color value in this tool or Webflow or any other tool that accepts hexadecimal color values. So I'm not just saying orange because I'm being a lot more specific, obviously. And then I can click on that square of color and load this color palette. And then I could go in and, I could even choose the color picker, which is this little guy here, the eyedropper, and easily change the color. So I'm not sure how new at this you are, but I just wanted to at least show you a little bit about how to find things. I was able to get to this text just by double clicking on it, and I can quickly go in here and start to work with changing this text so that it is something more friendly to what I would want to be promoting. And I can see that some fonts are missing here. And we can choose replacement fonts, or Figma does have a way to import or link to web fonts that exist. When you do see this message, you need to replace it so that you can edit your file. So you either need to find and install this font so that you can use it, or you need to choose a replacement that's available to you. In this case, I'm going to choose, this looks to me a lot like a font called Railway. So I'm going to just head down. It's not going to be exact, but it's going to be somewhat similar. And then let's see, I'll go ahead and do the same thing here.
Looks like we have a question in the chat. Brandon wants to know how Figma differs from XD in terms of like, what does Figma do that XD can't?
XD is a very good tool, honestly. And I want to show you since you asked. So you may use XD already. The primary difference is that Adobe XD is a commercial tool, and it's part of a creative suite of tools that work well together. Photoshop, you can't edit images like you can in Photoshop in a tool like Figma or XD for that matter. So if it were part of your workflow to retouch images and bring them into your design, it just might be easier for you to work in that flow. But generally, the primary difference is, because XD's added collaboration too, the primary difference is that because Adobe is very well recognized, sometimes corporations adopt it just by the very nature of they're already using the other suite of tools, and it is it has a longer history overall. Adobe has been around much longer. It's been vetted and approved already by legal when you're working in corporate, and there are many benefits in terms of really just the integration with the other tools. But let me show you. They're very similar. The interfaces are actually even very similar. Let me head over. Let me go to this one, and it'll pull up the page about it, I believe. Here we go. So Adobe doesn't want to be left behind. They've been around for a very, very, very long time. They were the first tool I used as a designer. I used, well, CorelDRAW and then PageMaker and then later Photoshop. And I don't think they're going to be going anywhere for a while, at least I hope not, because their photo editing tools are unmatched so far. But you can see that in Adobe XD, just like what we're doing in Figma, you can easily collaborate, you can easily prototype, you can easily share your designs. The main difference is that Adobe XD has a cost. So there's a monthly cost for Adobe XD. In terms of differences, primarily, I think it boils down to the way that Adobe XD fits into the workflow of Illustrator, Photoshop. If you're using Adobe After Effects, maybe even to simulate some micro interactions or for video, or Adobe Animate for some of your animations, they just speak the same language. They're very easy to use together, and they're from a professional, I mean, they're professional tools, and it's never a bad thing to have the skill on your resume and to be able to quickly dive in and use the tool. It's the interface. If let's say you got the job and you're like, okay, you're going to be working in Adobe XD, you're going to sit down, and if you're familiar with Figma, it's going to feel very similar. There's going to be a few things to learn, but for the most part, the tools translate in terms of a type tool is a type tool, and a box tool is a box tool. There's just a few different naming conventions and features, but for the most part, they're very, very similar.
Looks like there's one more question about previewing fonts. So is there a way in Figma to preview fonts?
That's a very good question, actually. And let me think about that for a second. When it's installed locally, when you have the desktop version of the tool, I believe it does show you. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Google and just see if they've given us, maybe there's a plugin for it, preview fonts in Figma. Let's just see. Font preview. So it looks like they have a plugin, which that's not too surprising because that's a lot of times what happens if they're missing a piece of functionality. So it looks like there's a plugin called Font Preview, and it lets you live preview and save your favorite fonts in a separate tab. Cool. Filter and search for fonts so you don't have to scroll the giant list. That sounds friendly too. So yes, you can, but you need a plugin. And in addition to, since we're talking about fonts, I just wanted to show you that you can also pull from a pretty extensive library from Google Web Fonts, which are all free. You may know this already, but you can use these fonts on the web, and you can also install them locally on your machine. And there's many, many, many of them here. And if you find one you want to use, it's not very complicated to bring that over and use it in Figma. I think most of them are already there, if not all. So hopefully that answers that. So heading back over to the first design. So, I've replaced that other font with Railway. So now I can actually type, and instead of saying grow your subscription business, I'm going to say grow your handyman business, because it looks like this person is, I don't know what they're doing, but they're going to be a handyman for now. So I just did that just so you could see how easy it is to change text. Now, if I wanted to start to take this page and build it in Webflow, what I would need to do is examine the page and determine which parts of this page are graphics, and make sure that those images or graphics are exportable or available so that I can pull them into Webflow. So in order to do that, I see there's a lot of notes in the chat, but hopefully those aren't questions. So in order to do that, you click on the image, and then over on the right-hand side in the palette, which is nice whenever you select something, the tools are contextual. It brings up, whatever's relevant to what you're working with, so that you can, make quick choices. So in this case, it says export one time. It's going to be a PNG. The reason to use a PNG is because it keeps a transparent background, so you can stack images on top of other things. So I'll leave that there. And that's what it's going to look like. Looks good to me. So I'm just going to go ahead and export my hero. I'm going to go ahead and keep moving on. Let's say I want to make sure all of these are exported. All I did was just click and drag around them. And now I'm just going to go ahead and make sure they're selected. Looks like they are as SVGs, which is scalable vector graphic, another type of image. Here we're going to go get PNG again. Perfect. We just go ahead and export this guy and export this guy. And then we've got a pricing table. Okay, so we did a little bit in Figma, and I'll do more if you want to know more, just let me know. But before I leave, I'll be back, don't worry. But before I leave, I just want to point out that your main drawing tools are here at the top, as well as the ability to pull in images. You can also just drag and drop them in. You have pen and pencil tools, just like you do in Adobe Illustrator, so that you can create vectors and modify vertices and things like that, the little points where you can, reshape objects. Text tool, hand, let you move your design around. And then comment, which is a really powerful feature because we can say, change this to tool belts image. I don't know, pretending, and then my team would see that I left that comment and, know to potentially make a change. It'll also notify them. And then when the other person comes in and deals with it, they can reply and also resolve comments, which is pretty nice. We use that a lot in class, give feedback to each other, especially when a design's not quite finished, but we have it available to us and to the community. We can leave notes for each other with suggestions. They can also ask questions. They can ask me too, but you see the point. Okay, so now I'm going to head over to the next tool we talked about, which is Webflow. And that is right here. So just like I did with Figma, I'm going to go back out for a moment. So I'm going to head over to my other browser and I'm going to type in Webflow. Okay, so Webflow is popular now because it's what you call a no-code tool. So the point of it is that you don't have to be a developer to be able to create a design and to be able to host, to have a live website that has, multiple pages and contact forms and things like that. They've made it very easy to create design. Well, easy, let me put quotation marks. They've simplified the process of creating many things so that it's faster than it would be to hand code your design in HTML and CSS. There are still some limitations, but it's a great tool overall. So Webflow is also free until even when you host, it's free, but not with a custom URL. So if you want to have your own domain name, you'll need to purchase that domain name from a company like GoDaddy or Namecheap or similar. And then once you're satisfied with your design, you would switch to an account that allows you to have a custom domain, which I'll show you. And then you would then start paying a monthly fee for your site because of the hosting that they're providing with your custom domain name. Okay, so I'm going to click on Get Started. Same thing, sign in with Google. I'm going to go ahead and choose my local account. Once I do that, it tells me some things since I've been gone, some features that have been added. And this is our dashboard. So here, if we're on a team, we can see our teammates and, collectively all of our files together. If I clicked on settings so that you could see the pricing, right now, this account, it looks like I'm in the free plan, it looks like. And you can see that you get several things, but you can't export your code. And you also can't have a custom domain name. I remember that. So, and then there's just different features based on what more you want to do. Here you can have 10 projects, here you can have unlimited projects. So there is a fee, but it's not too exorbitant. It's not huge. There are other things that you can do too. Such as set up your, let me see, is this for e-commerce? No, this is billing strictly for them. Okay. And then integrations, you can integrate with other tools for extended functionality like booking and things like that if you wanted to use this tool instead of Bubble. Anyway, I'm gonna head back over the dashboard. So
Looks like we have another question. What types of images are not exportable from Figma to Webflow? Like SVG and PNGs are okay, but are JPEGs?
yes, I can't think of any image type that you can't export. You can export GIFs, you can export PNGs, JPEGs. I'm not sure if it would let you export a video file, but let's just click on that list. I'm pretty sure PNG, SVG, JPEG, GIF. Where's my file? Let's see. Over here, export, PNG. Okay, PDF. I forgot about that one. PDF, SVG, JPEG, PNG. I don't see GIF here either, actually. So maybe that's because I don't have more than one frame, or it may not be supported. But you could export a GIF using Lottie files or trying to think of why you would export a GIF if you were doing animation. You'd probably want to do a smaller file. So using a tool like Lottie files, which I'll show you when we get to the micro interactions. Okay, so heading back over here to Webflow. I did not mean to do that yet. Let me go back to the dashboard. Oops. Dashboard. So I'm heading back over to the school account. So you're going to see more sites listed in just a moment than you saw a moment ago. Okay. And when I want to create something new, over on the right hand side, I have the option to click new site. And I'm just going to go ahead and choose blank, free, yay, select it. They always give you kind of a funny name. You can name it if you want to. I'm just going to go ahead and click create. And now we're in Webflow. So Webflow is a pretty friendly tool, but there are some things to understand about it. First of all, over here on the left-hand side, this is your main control panel. So this is where you can access things like adding elements and layouts, which we're going to do in a moment. This is where you can create a symbol that's used across pages. This is where you can navigate items within your document. So your DOM, you can move down, the items that you have on your page. This is where you have your other pages, your page and the other pages of your site. If you turn it into something that has dynamic data, like a blog, you can add CMS, content management system. You can also use this for e-commerce. Personally, I'd probably use Shopify, just being honest, but you can do e-commerce with Webflow as well. Shopify just has a lot of great reports and things like that. There's no benefit to me for telling you that. I'm just telling you what I'd do. Then next, you have your asset manager. This is where we're going to bring in, for example, our graphics. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now, since we just, whoops. So let me head over here and just grab the ones that we just were working with. And let me see what those would have been. I didn't pay attention to what I just called them. Let me just check the names. Oh, content image. Okay, not very friendly names, but we'll fix that. Okay, so heading back over here. I see. Okay. Back into Webflow. So when I exported those images, before I exported those images, and I click on them, we can make sure that they're going to have a name that is friendly. And let's do that. Make this a little bigger. Actually, let me go back to our guy. Oops. Sorry. Okay, so Hero 3D, is that what they're calling him? Yeah, okay. So over here, if we were going to export this guy and we want his name to be a little friendlier when we import him into Webflow, we would give him a name that makes more sense. So maybe rather than Hero 3D, maybe he would be, in this case, I'm just going to say skateboarder, and I'm just going to use the word heroes just like they did. So now I've given this layer, this object a name, and when I export it, it's going to have a friendlier name now. So when I go back over to Webflow to bring that image in, it's going to make a little more sense. Also, just out of habit, I try not to use spaces in names of images or any type of asset or link, because although it's not that challenging anymore, it used to create issues, and anytime there's a space, it was, you know, %, something else, and it just makes it a little harder for linking and things like that. So if you just keep it clean and easy for yourself, you'll have less headaches in the future, and so will the development team. So I'm going to go ahead and just drag and drop my asset in, and I'll do the same thing here with this one. I'm going to, whoopsie, not all those. I'll do the same thing with this one. And obviously I can also go over here and I can rename him. Come on. Why are you giving me trouble? Okay. No, it's not letting me rename it for some reason. I don't know why it's giving me a little trouble. There we go. There's a little setting icon. Sorry, I didn't see it. Okay, so I clicked on the little tiny settings that were there that I'd overlooked. And right now, I can see a few things about it. The image size. We can add alt text here, which is very friendly and good for search engine optimization, also for accessibility, for low vision, for example. And I also want to change my name, but it is not letting me. So we'll go back to that. That's weird. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to take a look at this Figma page, and I want to get an idea of how this is laid out, because there are some elements, some layouts in Webflow that make it a little easier for us. So we're going to add in a navigation block. We're going to add in a hero area. We're going to add in a logo block. We're going to add in a couple of other informational areas. So let's head over and we're going to start to build this pretty quickly. So like I mentioned, this is our main control panel over here. On the right-hand side, this is everything that relates to our style panel. So this is where we really define the granular detail of how something looks. It's also where we can access our settings. It's where we can manage our styles. And this is where we can manage interactions, like micro interactions, triggers that make something on the page happen. So I'm going to go back over here to the left side control panel, and I'm going to click on plus, and I'm going to head over to layouts. And I want to show you that there are some components that are already part of Webflow, and there's no cheating at all by using these to start, because you are still going to be customizing everything. You're just using it as a framework to get started. So the first thing that I'm going to choose based on our design is sticky nav. So I just click on that, and now I can see that I have an area here for my logo. I have an area for my text and my button. Perfect. Just since we're on a roll, I'm going to go ahead here and I'm going to say plus again. I'm going to go over to layouts and I'm going to add a hero section, which is right here. And it doesn't look exactly like we want, but that's okay. We will fix that. I'm thinking if I want to use this instead, but reverse it. Actually, there it is. I overlooked it. Here's hero overlay, as if the text is overlaid on top of an image or a video. This is hero with the image on the right and the call to action on the left. Perfect. We're already starting to build a page. So if you're following along, so far all I've done is go into Webflow, click on plus. I moved over to layouts. There's two types, elements and layouts. Layouts have pre-made components. So there's a group of objects together. And so far we've built our nav, we built our hero area. Now we're going to go in and we're going to add our, I believe our logo block, if I remember correctly. Yes. And then after that, an informational section, informational, and then pricing. No, yeah, kind of. Okay. So we're going to head back over to Webflow and we're going to style everything. Don't worry, but I'm just kind of build out a little bit more of the structure. So I'm going to click on plus again. I'm going to head over to layouts and there is, let's see what we have here. We have sticky nav, we used our hero. We're going to use the feature section in a moment. We don't need that yet. We're going to use, let me see if we should use this. I'm just going back over to elements just to check. Yeah, I think, I don't think I need to worry about it being a list. So yeah, so I'm going to use this gallery object for my logos and get rid of the things I don't want. So I don't want this heading. At least I don't believe I do. No, just the logos. So back over here. And it's pretty easy to get rid of things. You click on it and you can hit delete on your keyboard just like you normally can. And that gets rid of the whole object. Perfect. And I know they're not the right size. We're going to fix that. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and add in our next informational section. So I'm going back to layouts and I'm going to use a feature. Whoops, it's saying I'm trying to insert inside the other object. That's why I got that error. So let me just go over here to my navigation. And we can see that we have our main body, just our page. We have our sticky nav here, which I'm going to close up. Hero, cards. Okay. Right after these cards, I want to say plus, layouts, features. Oh, you little brat. Sometimes if I can't grab the area, I'll just drop it in a little higher and move it down. I'll show you what I mean. This happens sometimes. So I'm going to click on plus, go over to layouts, feature section. Come on. See if I'm, let me try this one more time. See if I already had it. That's my problem. Okay. I'm selecting it by accident. Try this again. Plus, layouts, feature section. Okay. Let me close this and maximize my screen. Get out of the way. Okay. Plus layouts, feature section. Okay. So I wanted to make sure it's going to work before I told you what I was doing, but at the bottom, it shows you the hierarchy of where you are. And I clicked on body because I knew it would allow me to drop the layout object in the body. So I clicked there. Then I went to plus layouts, added the feature section that I wanted. And it realized I wasn't inside that other object anymore. And then if I needed to, on my hierarchy, if they weren't in the right place, I could just drag and drop them. I'm just going to pretend I'm going to move it up. So you see I put it right under the nav. I just wanted you to see how easy it is to move. I'm going to drag it back down. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put in one more feature I believe we had. And then we have, oh, I did it again. And then we have the pricing, I believe, and then we'll have a footer. So layouts, feature again, and then we're going to go over here, plus layouts, and we're going to do the pricing, which I think our closest, our closest object in this case is going to be this card section again. So plus layouts, cards, and then plus, oh, let me do it again. It's going to get me. I'm not going to let you. Body plus layouts and then footer. Okay, so we have already built a page, but now we don't have any images or real text. So let's start to do that. So cool. We should at least be proud that we have a page. If I wanted to, I could click publish and I can publish it. It's just going to go to a long URL, not as friendly, but you can see that I can already go out here and see that this is live on the web and we have a page. Can't really sell anything unless you have a hero for sale for 0 price. But anyway, so let's go back over here and go over to our Webflow doc, sorry, to our Figma doc. And let's grab the other things we need. So we need to know colors. We need to figure out our text. We need our logo here. So I had turned off the UI a few moments ago in Figma. So I'm going to right click and say show hide UI, which turns it back on. And now I'm going to go ahead and make sure my logo is selected. I'm going to export this logo. I'm going to, I already grabbed those images, so I'm going to go ahead and check the size of this font, size of this text here is 77. The color of this button is purple, but it's this hexadecimal value I'm going to copy. And I can see that my rounded corners, my corners are rounded on my button, and it looks like they're set at 10. And it looks like they're set at 10 for all sides. So now we know our logo. I'm actually going to change this back to the bright orange that it was. We'll grab that one next. Okay, so back over to Webflow. I have a few more assets to bring in for the logo. Anything else in here? I think this was the same, but I'll grab it. Okay. So now at the top, over here, I'm going to set the logo to be this image that we just brought in. So the way that I can do that is when I click on it, you can see that there's a little settings cog next to it. When I click that, I have the option to choose the image, and I'm going to choose the logo that we were using in Figma. I'm going to check all of our sizing and things like that in just a moment. In our hero section, we determined that we have this button, and because we already have the element on the screen, what we need to do now is actually style it. So when I click on it, I'll see over here on the right-hand side, some options become available that relate to that button. And one of them is color. So I can see right here that the background color of this is this value here. And I'm just going to get rid of everything except for the pound sign or the hash sign. Paste that in. Now our button's purple. Now, our button was also 10 pixels rounded corners, and we're going to do the same thing, but it's not the right size yet. So let's go back over to Figma and check the sizing. So I can see that our button is actually 211, 60 tall by 211. And the font and text inside is Railway, bold 17. So we're going to head over and apply those same things. While I'm there, I'm going to go ahead and add this text too. For your handyman business, just 80 bold, black. Well, not quite black, actually. I don't think I copied any other values, so I'll copy that. I need to remember 60 by 211. So, I mean, this part of it, honestly, there's a bit of science to it. I mean, we're just kind of dissecting this page and then recreating it in Webflow. But what we're doing by doing that is we're taking it from static, where it can't be shared with the world, to coded, so that if we were going to hand this off to the development team, we'd already have the front end created. If there was any logic that needed to be added, they could add that in. It's a coded usable site and could even be moved from Webflow to another tool once you're finished. So this, the size of this, when we looked, the text within was, it was Railway. And let's find that one here. Hopefully it's here. If it is not, we will say add fonts. I clicked on add fonts. It was at the top of my font list. And from Google, I'm going to go find Railway. Yay, there it is. I'm happy that they have it. And I'm going to get regular. And let's grab that one. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and add this font in so I can use it. And head back to our design. Just checking to see if I missed anything. Okay. Another tab. Sorry, I'd opened another tab. I didn't realize it. Okay, so now back in Webflow, I'm going to paste in the text that I had. Whoops, that was the value for the color of the text. Okay, so the text color is here. And rather than using just this black value, I'm going to paste in the specific value that we had in Figma, which is more of a charcoalish, black grayish color. For our button, we said that it was 211 by, it was 60 by 211. So we are going to change the height from auto to pixels, and it was 211. And the height was 60. And now our text inside was Railway. Maybe I didn't finish something, sorry. Maybe I didn't click save, sorry. Railway. Regular 600, 900. Oh, I don't know if I clicked add font. Thought I did though. Okay, added. Go back to the designer. And there it is. Railway is now available to us, which is good. And I just need to double check. I think we were at 80. We are, our text is a little bit close together. We're at 77. Okay, let's see. Grow your handyman business. Let's copy this. Head back over to Webflow. Just going to paste it in. It's not going to look quite like it yet because we haven't updated the font size. So now I'm just going to head down to the sizing area, change that. and I need to give it a bit more space between the lines. I think it was 76. And now I'm going to grab the next set of text. Sorry, I have this weird box right in front every time I try to go grab it. This text here, which is a lighter gray, and it is 30. So it's moolish. Let me see what it looks like as railway, just out of curiosity. We're going to make it railway. So same family, easy. Paste that in, and we're going to change it to railway. And I think it was 23. Could be wrong. So I didn't log in my brain. 20, okay, 20, 30 is the spacing. Okay, back over, still working on our science project. It's going to be 20 and then 30. And now I need to go grab the color. So I spent a little time in the beginning talking to you about some other tools and things like that. So we don't have our design, finished at a point where it's finished yet, but we're making progress. And it really is a matter of just kind of going in and filling in these details until it matches your Figma design and doing measurements and things like that. So let me show you that in Figma too. If I head back over here, if I want to measure the distance between two objects, I can click on the object, and then on the Mac, I would hold Option. It would be Control, I believe, on the PC, and I can see the distance between things. So like, for example, if I want to know how far this box is from this button, I can see that they're 50 pixels apart. So I can use that in a moment when I'm trying to determine, my spacing, my padding, my margins, across the page. I can measure things. What's the distance between the logo and this Grow Your Handyman business? It's okay, it's 201. So I know, how much spacing I need so that I can not have to guess when I'm, working on my design on the other page in Webflow. So now I'm going to grab this button size, and I'm going to pay attention to what our padding and margins are. So let's grab that. Looks like we're at
We have about 10 minutes left, and we have some questions. So whenever you have a minute, just let us know.
Yeah, sure. You can ask me while I'm filling in the design. Actually, I want to show you one more thing first, and then I just want to show you that at the top over here, you can create classes for your styles. So let's say, for example, I'm going to use this same exact style later on my page or in my design. Right now it's called heading. I just wanted to point that out. And whatever I apply to heading, if I go ahead and make sure that the like object on the page is named the same class or using the same class, it will look just like it. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to do that right here. So feature section, I'm going to change these quickly so that I can answer your question quickly to railway. And I'm going to pretend that they are 40, and I'm going to make them the color, just so I change it so you see it. I'm going to make them the color of the other item. Okay, so now I have a class here called heading 2. If I head to this next box, that's not a very friendly name, by the way. I probably want to use a better name, but if I head to the next one and look for heading 2 and choose that, I am applying that same class to the other object. So I will save a lot of time, and I can also make a change universally, or globally, so that I don't have to change each object manually later. So for example, if it moves from being orange to, instead being, a purplish color, that will automatically update all of the same class. And you can you can do add-ons. So I could make one thing about this class, but with a slightly different, let's say, weight. And I could do that by adding another class. So classes are stackable. Sorry. Okay, so go ahead and ask your question.
So this is from Manish. Sorry if I mispronounced that. I'm a software engineer thinking to learn Figma so that my personal projects are a little prettier. I have a couple of questions. Does Figma allow export to code? Is the code responsive? And does it allow to export into different frameworks such as React, Vue, etc.?
So I'm not sure if you meant that you were, so let's separate it actually. Figma does not export to code, unfortunately. There were some tools in the past that would do a fair job, never a perfect job of exporting to code from design. Usually it was pretty messy for the developers. But there are a few plugins that will let you export to HTML and CSS, but being honest, they are not always reliable. The more complex your design, the more difficult it is to export to code from Figma. That's why we're doing this part right now. We're taking our static design in Figma, we're recreating it in Webflow, because this is what you may have meant to ask me. Webflow will let you export the code. So everything that we're doing in here behind the scenes is generating HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, which could then, yes, be integrated with React and Vue or Angular, and could also be, let's say you created this front end for your development team, or you as a developer create this front end and you want to work instead in a tool like Sublime or VS Code, you'd have to upgrade your account. But if you have an upgraded account, you can pull the code right out of here and drop it into your text editor that you use to integrate with Vue and React and whatever the development pipeline's using. So yes, from Webflow you can. Figma, technically there's a couple of plugins, but it's messy. That's why we're doing this work of creating it in Webflow.
Can you group everything and export it? So I'm guessing in Figma, or is that Webflow, Samantha?
Some things she would mean from Figma. And
Figma, yeah.
Okay. I don't know what you'd be exporting it to, but yes, you could export a whole page of a PDF. For example, sometimes when I want to show clients a design, I'll click on the frame and you'll see that there's an option to, let me see, I haven't done that in a little while. Let me see, actually, I think I export the whole page. That's what I do. Where are you hiding? I know you can do it. I just have to remember where it is. I haven't done it in a little bit. Export, page, create. It's possible that I need to do what you said a moment ago, which is group everything, but I don't remember having to do that, but I'm going to do that just because it should work. So I'm going to highlight everything, like you said, right click on it, group the selection. And oh, you know what? I do see export. It might have been here before and it might have been covered by my download. I didn't see it, but now I can click on export. I'm actually going to try what I was doing a moment ago since I could do it. I'm going to click on the frame. It is here. I'm clicking on the frame and I can choose instead a PDF. So if I wanted to create a document to share with someone, I could do that. So I'm not actually working with the grouped objects right now. I'm working with the frame. Click on the frame, export PDF, export SaaS landing page, and you'll see in a moment. Here's my SaaS landing page. I'm sure I can find her so I can open it with preview. And there it is. There's our PDF.
And then we have another one that is there a way to transfer a grid over to Webflow? So when you are moving over assets, everything will be set properly. Yes,
you can't transfer your grid, but you can create a grid in Webflow, and it is, they moved it. It used to be over here. Just make sure it's still not there. Yeah, but they moved it over here somewhere. Let me find where they moved that little guy. I don't know why they did that to us. Sorry, I have, you probably can't see it on your side, but maybe you do, but I have live transcription, closed captioning. It's in front of my palette a little bit, so I can't 100% see. Let me check here. Okay, that's my breakpoint. I don't want to do that. They put it here. I was literally just showing the class this the other day, and literally it used to be here, which was so nice. And now
It's always fun when they move things.
I know. Well, we get to go on a scavenger hunt, you know? Okay, let's see. I might have to Google where it is now.
There was another question about Adobe exporting to code.
There was a tool, it was called Fireworks, and you could, and there is a tool called Dreamweaver, which I think they still support. Adobe XD, I did see when we were looking at it a moment ago that they had the CSS on the screen. So let's see if they added a feature. It'd be awesome if they did. I'd be so happy. We'll check in 1 second. Webflow grid. It is. Oh,
Everybody, we're at time, but we're still answering some questions. So if anybody else has any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat.
Sorry about that. I wanted to tell you that there's a really, really good university on Webflow's site. It's all free. So you can check out some things that I maybe didn't get to. Okay, here's where it is. They moved it over to, oh, I did see that a moment ago, but that's not the grid I was looking for. Okay, grid, the grid layout. Did they really just put it there? Add panel. Okay, I guess they moved it as part of the panels. And I did see that there before, but I didn't pay attention to it. So they have, oh yeah, okay. So they have it here, and then we can adjust it to, you know, whatever the settings would be to match what you're using in Figma. Okay, so the next thing, code from XD. I know that you can export CSS. I don't think you can export HTML. And Sketch also, by the way, you can export CSS, which I loved. Export CSS from XD. I saw that on screen, and it looks like there is a tool to do that. This is the same tool that they have for Figma too, that you can try. There is a charge, but it's a plugin that lets you convert HTML, CSS from Figma. From XD, there's also a plugin, CSS in Adobe XD. Go to link, export. Yeah, so you can export the CSS. I don't think you can export the HTML, but even just having the CSS will let you grab all the styles. So it saves some time.
And someone's asking, is Bubble free?
There is a free edition. Certain features that you add on they charge. There is a free level. You pay as you grow. So see, for example, if you want to connect to an API or create an API where you're sharing data or pulling in data, they charge you for that because you're using bandwidth for that, you know, so things that might cost them money, they start to charge you for, but it's not a huge fee.
And then what resources or books would you recommend for product design?
Oh my gosh.
Or maybe if you have a list, we can include that in the material that we send to them afterwards.
I will do that, but I want to show you one that I specifically love. It's called The Principles of Beautiful Web Design. There's a few editions of this, a few versions, I should say. I love this book. They did such a good job of breaking down and explaining visual design, product design. There are several other good ones. One of them is called 100 Things I Wish I Had Learned in Product Design School, I think it is. That's what it's called. Things I wish I learned in, I don't see it here, but I will provide a list. Do you have everyone's email that attended?
Yeah, we'll be sending out
Okay.
the recording as well with any materials that we use. And then if you have a resource page, we can send that to them as well. And
Perfect.
then, oh, thank you. So if anybody has any last minute questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. Otherwise, we're going to wrap up, and thank you everybody for coming. And thank you, Ashley, for putting together this amazing presentation. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much. I hope to see some of you in class soon. Like I said, reach out to me on LinkedIn or email Corey or I, and be happy to help you anytime.
And we do have a product design info session just specifically for product design. It's on March 23rd. I will put another link in the chat as well. But if you guys want to know more about the Flatiron product design program, please come by and check us out. Let me grab that link for you guys. And then I hope you guys have an amazing night.
Thank you so much. See you soon.